I didn't tell anyone except the father. And when I saw his reaction, I didn't tell anyone else. I just thought, well, this is my problem and I'll have to deal with it. And the only thing I could do was to get an abortion, because to have a baby without a husband just was not done. I just went to the telephone directory and I looked up obstetricians, gynecologists, and I looked for a gynecologist that didn't advertise as an obstetrician, and I thought maybe he would be most sympathetic, and it turned out he was.
There were many physicians who were supportive of abortion, who felt it should be available and provided safely for women, but they were afraid to do them themselves. Sometimes the fear was because they didn't want to be found out or would be censured, but very often their fear was, and rightly I think, that as soon as word got out that they were willing to do abortions, they would be flooded with requests.
And even on Saturday.
One of the doctors who started off thinking he would do a few abortions and who found himself getting referrals of women from all over the United States was Dr. Curtis Boyd. In 1965, he began to do abortions for women referred to him by ministers. Over the course of the next 8 years, he did thousands of abortions.
I began to realize how difficult it was to obtain the service, how desperately women needed it and wanted it, and to what lengths they would go to obtain it, even to readily risking their life. People talk about as though women didn't know that. That didn't matter. Women risk their life every day to get an abortion somewhere in this country. Many of them did, without hesitation.
And I just really literally walked up and down the streets. I was by myself, and I would go from one place to another, and they would all be in the same situation. They would say, nobody's there, I don't know what you're talking about, and oh, they've moved away. Finally, one day, I heard of a place, nobody answered the phone, but I got in the car and I went there and I knocked on the door, sort of after hours, like evening, early evening. I was the only one there. He did not give me anything. There was no anesthesia at all. And it was very painful, and I had no idea it was supposed to be painful. I thought maybe he had done something terrible, was doing something terrible to me. And so it was a frightening experience. That was frightening.
Throughout the years of criminal abortion, an aura of danger surrounded unwanted pregnancies. Women drank toxic substances. Unscrupulous practitioners administered caustic douches of Lysol and Clorox. Reports of rape and other sexual abuse by abortionists were common.
At that time, shotgun marriages were in vogue, and there were all these youngsters getting married, which I soon saw that never solved anything. It only made the matters worse. The marriages never lasted, the children suffered, and it was a miserable situation. And then we went through the period when we were sending girls to homes for the unwed mothers that were all over the country, and they expected to work part-time and give up their child for adoption. And that was a very sad situation, because you would see a young woman come in, and if she was a schoolgirl, she would have to go off, leave home, and everyone knew why. And her life was really wrecked, socially and academically and everything else. And it was the young that really got to me, seeing some of these youngsters, 12, 13, 14, their mothers would bring them in. And it was just a horrible thing.
As public awareness grew about the consequences of illegal abortion, lawmakers and clergy joined with the medical establishment in pressing for reforms. In states where therapeutic abortions were permitted, some doctors were lenient, so they could provide more women with safe abortions.
I heard about these two co-eds in Stanford who went to Tijuana and obtained illegal abortions. The first was a girl who came back with a fulminating septicemia and who subsequently died. The second came back and had a severe infection of her reproductive organs, and it was necessary to do a hysterectomy, which rendered her sterile, of course. At the same time, there was in existence in California a law which allowed for medical support with an abortion on non-medical grounds, namely through a psychiatric channel. We would use these channels in order to enable the girl or woman to get a therapeutic abortion. Why did I do this? It was outrage at the way in which women were being treated, whether there was a reaction of the boyfriend or fiancé or husband. Some of these responses were grotesque. Some men told the women that if I'd known you were so stupid, I wouldn't have gone with you in the first place. Others told the girl that it's her problem, she's got the baby, he doesn't have anything to do with it. A good number of them just took off, just had no response whatsoever. So where do women who are desperate get help?
It did make me recognize that there were many of us out there who were looking desperately for some place to solve the problem. And so I began to listen. I began to hear when anybody said that you tune in, you know, you get sensitive to it, and you begin to hear things that give you a clue, and you pursue it a little bit and find out that somebody did have an abortion. And I just got the names of the doctors, and I would just give the names. A young woman would call on the phone, someone I didn't know, and would ask for help. And that they were feeling so desperate that they were calling strangers. I was aware that what I was doing was illegal. I guess I think what was going to happen to them was worse than the possibility of what might happen to me.
People who themselves had had to search for an abortion understood the difficulty in finding one. When Russ was 19, he and his girlfriend realized she was pregnant.
I was terrified at the prospect of being a father, and I went to my assistant track coach, a young guy, very friendly and so forth, and I told him. And he said, find out more about it, what do you want to do, and so forth. And I began to ask around about possibilities of her getting an abortion, and I talked to her about it. And she didn't want to be a mother either. First off, there was some misbegotten effort, I don't know where it originated or how it happened, to get some kind of pills that would induce abortion, an abortion, and they didn't work. Finally, I get a name of someone actually in town in Los Angeles who's willing to do this and get a price. And my assistant coach gave me the money.
Years after his own experience, Russ had a chance to help someone else.
I was approached by a senior professor, a woman, who had a student, a freshman, and she was pregnant. Did I, by any chance, have any information on where she might get an abortion? Well, it's interesting. I didn't hesitate. I got a name of someone highly confident that this was a good clinic in Tijuana, and she got the abortion. Well, I saw her about 2 years ago, and she came up to me and she thanked me. That was nice. It felt a little bit like saving a life.